Hey everybody, welcome to World Building with LegendKeeper. I'm David. This is High Shelf Gaming. We are an actual play Twitch stream, and tonight I am joined over here with Braden from LegendKeeper. Dude, welcome.
Hello, my name's Braden. I make the app called Legend Keeper. It's you do it for world building and stuff. It's pretty cool.
It's
I
dope.
like it.
It's so good. It's so good. And next to me is Anto from Icarus Games. Anto, welcome back, man.
Hello, people of the internet. I'm Anto.
I love your green screen.
Oh, thank you. It's. I was about to say I made it myself. I absolutely did not make it myself.
Who makes green screens? We buy them off of Amazon like a normal human.
Exactly.
Yep. And next to Anto is Patrick from Two Brothers Gaming. Patrick, welcome back, man.
Hello. Well, thank you, interwebs. Glad to meet you.
Yes, it's good to be here, everybody. So if you haven't seen this before, we were doing this like monthly, and then the holidays happened. And then like everybody got crunch time. Like we were doing a bunch of projects. Two brothers were doing, but Braden, you've been busy as hell on Hydra. You know, like we've all been crunch zone. Anto, you're starting a zine, which is incredible.
Yeah.
Patrick, you've published a game. You're publishing another. You know, like, and so we said, hey, let's just put a pin in this for a minute. We'll get back to it. And here we are. We're back. We're gonna do it for real. Now I want to apologize real quick. I've noticed a little bit of video starting. I think that's me. So tonight, folks, the smoothness of the video for whatever reason is a little off. I'm not exactly sure why, but that's okay. We're gonna trudge forward because we can hear everybody well, and that's what we really care about is how everybody sounds. Thank you, Jagos. We are slowly filling out. Yeah, we are gonna get into this. I don't think. Oh, so two quick announcements, just from us and to everybody. May 1st, Patrick, you are going to be running a game here, May Day. We're going to be playing the Traveler RPG. Do you want to talk a little bit about what we're going to be doing on May 1st and why we're raising funds? And Braden, Legend Keeper, is helping sponsor that. Thank you so much, Braden.
Yes.
So quick plug for that. Will you talk briefly about what we're up to on May 1st?
Yep. The second annual Traveler Charity Event. Which features a number of players, Dave being one of them. I'm the referee. We are playing Angle of Incidents Traveler game, and we are raising money for the Carcinoid Cancer Foundation, which provides education and research into carcinoid and neuroendocrine tumors, which are often mistaken for a long period of time before they're properly diagnosed. And so quite a lot of pain and suffering for people until they're done. So last year was a spectacularly successful charity event, and no small part thanks to Braden and our other sponsors who provided lots of giveaways. This year we have some great giveaways again for people who come in and donate. Mark Miller, creator of Traveler, is providing some stuff. We've got core rule books from Mongoose Publishing. We've got 2 dice vaults from Wormwood Gaming, Drive Through RPG, gift certificates, Immortal Knights tokens gift certificates, and Cyborg Prime Publishing. He's providing some material, and Access Stories is providing some material as well, along with Legend Keeper items. So join us 8 p.m. Eastern. It's a lot of fun. And if you donate, you also get to contribute to the game. And you could even have one of our players say words in Christopher Walken's voice like he did last year. We love it for Rich to do it. So it's fantastic. So thank you. So looking forward to it. It's a lot of fun and raises money for a good cause that's close to my heart for my personal connection to it. So
yeah, we're really excited to host that again, and it's gonna be a lot of fun. I'm really excited about the Wormwood Gaming giveaways and all the giveaways that we're doing, and always good to get Rich to say things in the voice of Christopher Walken, because he does it. Like, you see him warm up into the voice, and then whatever you've given him, he'll just carry for as long as he can, and then he'll lose it, and it's great. And then it's always fun to see when he loses it. So Braden, I'm going to turn it over to you to talk some world building and what we're up to. I think tonight we're focusing on the little things that help us keep our worlds rich and full of interesting tidbits, make it feel alive.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I'd love to get started on that. And of course, folks, if you have questions, please toss them in the chat. We have a moderator, Katrina, helping us out tonight. So thank you, Katrina. If you were paying attention to her instructions, put question in the beginning of your thing. That way she can filter for that, find all your questions and send them our way. And we can, wax poetically about your ideas and questions and things.
As we all want to do.
Indeed.
Or just wax.
Yeah, or just, yeah.
Hey everybody, welcome to this waxing stream.
Yeah, we are very casual here. We will say
Not that kind of stream.
all kinds of stuff. So hold on to your butts. So Braden, I'm sorry to tease you with the control stick for so long. Please take it away.
No, it's all good. We could just keep saying more weird stuff. That's fine too.
We've been
Sorry,
inside for a long time.
the waxing stream just caught me off guard.
Yeah, I bet.
Okay, cool. So today we're going to be talking about the little things in world building, and kind of what that refers to is, the mundane parts of a world and how they influence the way a story is told or a campaign unfolds. And so I kind of wanted to start it off with, do y'all have any like properties or stories or campaigns or whatever that you like that kind of really nail the little things? Stuff that really enriches the world, right? And makes it feel alive.
Yeah. So what I will do in the little things department is almost every session, if I remember to, I try to, at some point when the characters are walking by something, I like to introduce a scene that I don't really intend for them to interact with, but I want them to witness. And you see it in some of the video games like Skyrim and Cyberpunk and all that kind of stuff. Well, they'll like let you watch crime happen, or they'll let you watch like trade get conducted, that kind of thing, just to help you understand how the world works, right? And what is the moral set of the space, right? Yeah. So I always like to early on show them crime and punishment, right? And if they're living in a harsh world, I want them to see like, I want them to see the brutality of that, right? Or if this is a more lenient society, I want them to see people getting away with stuff, right? I want them to see that the thieves kind of run this place. And so I try to let them witness things that don't involve them. Because as soon as I involve one of the PCs, now they got to handle it. So I always try and make it something that they're observing whenever they're first into town and before they really feel like they have a lot of comfort to start throwing their weight around. So that's usually what I'll do.
To kind of expand on that a little bit, one of the things I often encountered DMing games is I'll go into the little things, right? But just mere calling attention to them can sometimes encourage your players to think that they aren't little things, right? And how do you... It's probably not so much of a problem like when you're in the middle of a campaign with players that right, and that know your style, but especially like near the beginning.
Oh yeah.
What are some techniques you employ, or how do you kind of handle the players attempting to kind of railroad themselves into like, you're like, oh no, that's just like the field of bluebonnets. It was just pretty. It's not like important to the story. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, guys. I have a great story about this. My friends wanted me to run them a Serenity game, like Captain Mal and all that stuff, right? And so we did it. And of course, they all made characters that were basically carbon copies of the show. And I was like, all right, that's fine. Whatever, guys. You're so excited. And I had them witness a crime. And this was a huge mistake. The first thing they saw was a crime happen. And like, I just wanted to establish a part about the world. And it was like, yeah, you see there's this cart full of like premium hay that has been made on some other planet and is brought here to be fed to some premium cows or something. And they watch it get stolen. And I was like, and you're on your way to go meet your fixer, your guy who's going to give you a job. And they're like, we want to follow the hay. And I was like, damn it. So while they're like I have to like come up with this manner and the security system and drones, and I was just like making it all up on the fly. I was like, no. So yes, don't do it too early because they'll think that's the story.
I mean, an argument could be made for just don't do it at all sometimes, because there's always the chance that the players are going to go, ooh, shiny, I'm being shown something. It is important.
Right.
In my game this week, I had the players walking through the streets, and I just wanted to give them the impression that they were walking through kind of a shady area of town. So I had a couple of NPCs kind of pay a little bit too much attention to them and then split up and go their separate ways. So the players were like, well, we're going to follow one of them, obviously, or we're going to split up. Let's split up. So when the inevitable combat I had planned came about, one of the players was just invisible on the other side of the city, following this random woman through the streets because he looked at her funny. And okay, you need to start sprinting back over to the combat that's happening now.
Right. Right. Yeah, and you'll be back when the fight's over, or I'll be nice and let you come back in 3 turns.
Yeah. As it happened, it was exactly 3 turns as well.
the 3 turn punishment, man. Yeah.
I think it also depends somewhat a little bit on kind of what it is that's mundane, right? So, like, because I've had the same experience. Like, I have a Witcher campaign where they went into some place and found something, and there's now a whole storyline that we're like, I'm really intrigued by this mystery. I'm like, hell, I made it up on the spot. Okay. But like Cyberpunk or a lot of the science fiction stuff, you can put stuff in that isn't immediately accessible, right? Like advertisements or screen sheets in Cyberpunk, where you can basically dump it, and every time, every session, you can give them a new screen sheet for the day or later that evening, and it has a bunch of stories in it, and some of them may tie into what you're doing. Some of it may just be fluff, and there's nothing they can do immediately usually. Now, granted, they could say, oh, I want to follow that, but you can kind of help prevent them from going too far down that path. But it kind of provides some of that background and fluff into it that allows them to kind of get a sense of the world. Or having them, one of my favorite things with Cyberpunk is having them engage with a restaurant, that they always go to, or a bar where they get to define, and I know Dave, you've done this, where they get to find some, maybe some of the cuisine, some of the food, and some of that kind of stuff where they're engaged with it, so they know they're creating it, and helping to create that mundane sort of normal sense of it. So
you reminded me about food. This is one of those things that, like, when you go to World Build, food is super important, right? And a lot of times we'll kind of gloss over that because it's not immediately important to, like, plot of things, right? I remember I played in this Traveler game a while back where the GM had set up like 3 different systems that all had very different relationships with food. And it came from big cultural differences. One ate with covered mouths. You never saw them actually imbibe anything. They all wear these masks while they're eating so that they could consume in a very polite and clean way. And another was very, like, gregarious and just eating right off the bone, and, like, soup in the beard and all that kind of stuff. And it was interesting because it added so much flavor to these different systems. But that's a little thing. How do your people handle food? When do they eat? Is it snacks? Is it communal? Is it the dad sits at the head of the table and the mom makes the meal? What is the culture around food does have a huge impact, right? And yeah, Patrick, to your point, we had a really cool restaurant scene come up where my players decided there should be a restaurant or an inn thing, and they also decided the cuisine, and it was really cool to have them dictate culture in the world. But that all came from kind of an organic situation. But remembering, like, food in the scene matters, right? That helps tell the story about who these people are and how they work and all that kind of stuff.
It's a really good way to encourage the players to role play and think more about their characters as well. If you're playing a fantasy game, be like, right, okay, you're all likely playing as different ancestries. Talk about your people's food. Like,
right.
in a moment of downtime, you're having a meal, say what your people's food are. What are you eating at this meal is a good way to encourage your players to think more deeply about themselves as well as the world.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that's a really cool way to get players more involved, because like I'm sure we've had varying experiences of like how involved a player wants to be in the lore, right? Everyone kind of has a different spectrum. You might have someone that comes to you and they're like, "Hi, I wrote 50 pages on my character. Here you go. Please read this before the next session." Or you have people that are like,
find this in your world. Just put it somewhere
Yeah.
in your world. That's all I care about.
or they come to the table and they're like, "To be honest, I forgot my character's name. Do you remember it?" And so there's like a big spectrum. And what I like about what you guys are talking about is creating these organic moments where you can use, maybe even just the power of improv, right, to do some of that collaborative world building that we love so much on stuff that probably won't derail the story. So like the dish they choose in a restaurant, right, or the the story they tell over a campfire or whatever. I think that's really cool.
Yeah. I want to, if it's okay, I'd like to pull in one of the questions from the audience real quick, which I think kind of germanes to some of this, like making little things. And the question from Flanks? Phoenix. Thank you so much, Anto. One of your folks, I'm sure, said, do you have a favorite NPC that was created almost or completely by accident? How did it happen? Patrick, do you have a favorite NPC that was made by accident on the fly that you love now?
Yeah. So in that Witcher game again, so the guys that I play with there come from a kind of a D&D background quite a bit. So they're always going shopping, and they're always wanting to find potions and spell, and all kinds of stuff. So I kept having to create these, NPCs on the fly, because it'd be like, oh, all right. So, so I pull up my Rolodex character name. Okay. Yeah. But there was one that they really liked, and they kept going back to him a couple of times. And so I kind of built a little bit more about him. And then I killed him, and set in motion a chain of events.
Oh, you like this NPC? Excellent. Let me use it against you emotionally.
That's the only way I know how to roll.
That's so good. That's so good. Anto, what about you? Yeah.
I think I might have even told this story in a previous stream. I know that I've told it somewhere on the internet. But basically the big bad of my last campaign is all my players' fault, because they went into a general store in their second session. They just fought a vampire. They went into a general store, spoke to the storekeeper, and for some reason I decided to give him a Romanian accent, and they narrowed in on that real hard, and like, this guy's absolutely evil. We've just fought a vampire. This guy's got a Romanian accent, has to be evil. But they didn't do it.
This Romanian sounding guy, totally a vampire.
Yeah, totally a vampire. We're not going to do anything about it. We're not going to make any
question.
checks.
Was the vampire before? Did he also they share an accent, or are they just immediately like, oh no?
They immediately draw on then their kind of meta knowledge.
Right.
Meta knowledge will ruin you, players. Yeah. It will ruin you.
So this guy's 100% a vampire, but they don't do any checks. They don't question him beyond just being like, "Are you a vampire?" To which he obviously says no. And at first I thought this guy's
just what a vampire would say.
Exactly. This guy's just going to be a regular NPC, but over time, because of their obsession, his role in their life kind of grew and changed, and he became their primary go-to to buy things. He started selling them incredibly powerful magic items, always exactly what they wanted and exactly what they needed, very needful thing style. And then eventually it got to the point where he was like a time-traveling demigod that was just dogging them through the entire campaign. Everywhere they went, he would arrive and just ruin their day. And it's all their fault, because they decided he was a villain the first time they met him.
Yeah, cool. Now he's a villain. Thanks. Yeah. Yeah, I feel like players have a huge impact on which NPCs I'm going to fall in love with. Because I'll make a couple here and there, but like the ones that are super random. If I go back to my gas station example, that whole gas station existed because the player was like, hey, we're doing this heist on an armored truck. Wouldn't it be cool if it stopped for gas? And we knew which gas station to stop at. I was like, that's kind of a weird thing for you to know, but I'll roll with this. Why not? Right? And then, man, we had to I just started coming up with stuff. And it's like, oh yeah, it's this guy Roy's, because somebody had a picture of a gas station named Roy. And so we had to define who Roy was. And now the group loves Roy, and they've given Roy so many things, and Roy's got a really complicated history with another gang and all this kind of stuff. And it's like, I was all on the fly. I didn't ever intend to make Roy happen, but the players wanted a specific setup for a heist to go down. I was like, all right, let's do that. I'll just give it to you. And we need some NPCs around that. So that was completely off the cuff and accidental. And then it ended up being many sessions worth of content off of that one dude who made Mexican, what was it? Kolaches, kind of a Polish and Mexican thing. I think I told you guys about that before. But that one, that was all player initiated. And that's why I loved it, is like, oh man, this is a fun NPC. My players love this NPC. They're bending over backwards for this guy who doesn't deserve their love. Does not deserve their love. He's a bad guy, has done bad things because of who he rolls with, but they've decided they like him. And so, okay, great. Let's do this. This is great.
We had a D&D session in the, if anyone's familiar with Faerun, near the north of the Desrin Valley. I forget, it's one of those towns is in the lore run by a baron. And so the players were traveling north over this bridge that leaves the Desrin Valley. And for whatever reason, I decided that one of the baron's men was at the bridge taking tolls as like an area of local tax. Just thought it would be kind of a fun little encounter. Oh man, my players did not like even someone proposing that they pay a toll to cross the bridge. And the Baron's men have a particular uniform, right? It's like a bright red uniform with like a hat with like a feather in it. Oh, man. And so they like really zero in on what he's wearing, and really like just hurt his feelings a lot. And so they like jibe back and forth with this Baron's man who's they're trading insults until eventually it gets out of hand and they kind of push him, and there was a really bad roll involved, and he trips and he falls off the bridge, never to be seen again. I was not expecting any of this to happen, but collaboratively, the party and I kind of imagined, they leave the bridge and you kind of like smash cut to like 2 weeks later, and there's like a Neverwinter detective like at the bottom of like the basin, gathering evidence, right? And like, who are these guys? Who'd have done such a thing? And it's just like one of those like silly encounters that's created this fun kind of subplot that gives you a chance to explore some of the little things, like how does crime and justice work in your universe? How do detectives work in this late medieval fantasy sort of setting, and how does that work and all that stuff?
I've got basically the same thing happening in my game right now. Like a few weeks ago, the players were traveling. They came across a caravan of linen traders who didn't speak the same language as them and were very different culturally. And the party ranger is not the brightest Aarakocra in the pack, so almost immediately defaulted to violence because the people quite kind of rambunctious, and it ended up with the players going full on murder hobo, and now they are dealing with the consequences of, well, these people did nothing wrong and people are coming for you now.
Consequences.
Oh, murder hobos.
That's my favorite part about being a DM, is like, oh, cool, you want to do something that goes against like an agreement, or maybe you overreach a little too far. It's like, okay, yeah, that works out for you today. That's great.
Honestly, that's one of my biggest challenges, is like punishing, because you get to this point where the player characters are so damn powerful and they have so many like tools in their arsenal that a lot of my players are like, who dares would challenge us? I really need to like, amp up the stakes,
dude. I find D&D, it's kind of hard to do that sometimes, because like the spells get kind of crazy, and then you as the GM need to know like the better spells, right, or have the NPC that will counterspell like healing. Like, no, they're counterspelling everything y'all want to do. You want to heal, cool, counterspell. you know, he's got 5 guys that are all going to counterspell. So what you got? You know, like...
I think that a good option for D&D specifically, for that escalating tension, is start drawing on other planes of existence, because the players are used to kind of the material realm, the mundane threats. You start pulling in from other planes and having like inquisitors from hell tracking them, and like celestials and all of these extra planar things. It's easier to explain the power level that they need to have to follow the players, as rather than being, oh well, if this person existed in the mundane world all this time, why have we been on adventures? Why have this person not been saving the world?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good stuff. The other thing you can do to go after that kind of stuff is I require all my players to have some kind of connection that their PCs care about. They cannot be completely detached from any responsibilities, and I'll go hit that. I'll be like, okay, yeah, you guys are all cool in the gang. You're like ruling court and everything like that, but your home village is being sacked by raiders.
Yeah,
and as cool as you are, you've got to leave this scene and go take care of this problem. Otherwise, your estates will be ruined, or whatever it is. You know, just kind of hit them from the side. Sometimes. What's up, T-Cal?
Yeah. I a lot of times use their tendencies against them. So in that Witcher game, you know, the Witcher character, he has great roles, and I keep trying to throw some really tough stuff at him, and like all of a sudden, like it's like, oh yeah, explode. Oh yeah, all of a sudden. So I set up an encounter with a bunch of neckers that, you know, in the sewer that they were kind of pursuing, and he decided he was just going to run in. And I had a room that these guys were in, and there was a far much badass monster that was inside it that the neckers were controlling. And so he went in and was like, you know, so he had been sort of all gung-ho, and I was like, all right, I'll let you go gung-ho and run into something tough. So now the next time he was like, wait, you know, do I think about this a little bit more? So
and to go all the way back to our little things, and you talking about Anto or Braden, you talking about like the detective that shows up, like that is a little thing.
Yeah.
Right? Like they did a thing, and you introduced this little element about how the world responds to that, and that does keep the world alive. Right? Mm-hmm. Like if you have a player that's going around throwing a bunch of grenades or lighting a lot of fireballs, well, the towns around are going to start having like very quick ordinances against fire-based magic, right? Yeah. And there may even be posters of that character in future towns, and they may not be allowed to go in. It's like, look, you say you're adventurers, and I can see on the character sheet you say you're lawful good, but 2 towns ago there was a huge thing, and a thing got burned down, and sorry, we're not willing to lose our grain silo, or we're not willing to lose our chapel here. So you can't stay here. I'm sorry. You know,
this is one of those things because you're absolutely right. Like it's, you know, I hearken it to kind of a game engine metaphor, right? Of something happens in your shared game engine and things are going to respond to it. And that's one of the things I find the most challenging as a DM, which is keeping track of all the cause and effect, all the accumulations of little things that are going to branch out and change things. And honestly, that's one of my goals with LegendKeeper. And it's, you know, it's not there yet, right? Because it's, you know, LegendKeeper is mainly, you know, Atlas and Wiki. But as it grows and we start adding that stuff like timeline and like the being able to see the graph, the connections between people and towns, I would love to tailor those tools to help solve this exact problem, which is you as a DM, maybe it's during a campaign or after a campaign, and you're like, okay, the players made this decision and this decision, which affected this person. You go find that person on your big, you know, detective bulletin board of things crossing other people, and like they wronged this person, or they gave this guy 5,000 gold.
Right.
Who does he know? What is he going to spend that money on?
Right.
Or, you know, who is he going to tell that they mugged him or whatever? And how can you bring that back around and keep that world alive and responsive to their actions? Because it's so hard once you, especially early in a campaign, you have a lot fewer variables, a lot less people the characters know. so much of the world is hidden that you don't have to simulate it as much. But as you go on and you get 1-2 years into a campaign, there's so much that could respond to the things that are happening, and it's hard to keep track of all that stuff.
I don't go after all of it. I go after like one or two things. If like they do something, I'm like, you know what? I think somebody's gonna note that. I'll keep in my GM notes, right? And I'll put like big, bold, whatever. And it's like they did this thing, and the shoe keeper saw it, or whatever, right? And then when I'm going back through my notes, I'll try and use something, and I might even say, look, that's going to be 2 or 3 sessions down the road. And in my like GM prep area for the game on the GM side of LegendKeeper, I'll have all that like they did these things in these areas, and that might come back. And you know, most of it doesn't ever see the light of day again. But when one of them does or two of them does, it's like, oh,
yeah,
okay.
It gives this illusion that the world is even if it's just that one thing, right? That's enough to kind of fill in everyone's imagination.
And so I also make my players do, or I don't make them, I encourage them through XP rewards to write up journals in LegendKeeper, and then those get auto tagged. And so I know, oh, they all wrote down about this NPC. Okay, if everybody wrote something about this NPC matters. I'm going to invest more into this NPC. I'm going to have more immediate responses from this NPC, right?
That's a great idea. I like that a lot.
That's really good.
Sweet.
So, Braden, you normally ask during these sessions, like, what would you like to see in LegendKeeper? You know, what if you could have anything?
That is one of my favorite questions.
It is, and I've recently discovered clocks from Blades in the Dark has them, and I've started to use progress clocks or action. They've got a few different terms, but it's something that I think would be like really cool in LegendKeeper because taking like if taking an idea from Dave where you just have something happen off to the side, you could actually make that meaningful and say, did they interact or not interact with that? That has a consequence that you could track on a clock that says, okay, because they did not interact with that and save that person, somebody witnessed them just passing them by and decides they want to come after them later, or
like you really want to mess with your players. Have them witness an NPC get run up for something they did. Oh my god! Oh my god! The inner terror of a PC watching like the shopkeeper get tousled because the fight that happened in the back alley of their shop that the PC's totally caused gets blamed on the shopkeeper. It's like, oh man.
So I'm not familiar with the clock concept. Could someone explain that for me?
Blades in the Dark by John Harper is a really interesting game. It's I kind of call it like a structured role play. There's the heist mechanic or the heist time, and then after heists are downtime. But all throughout the game are these clocks, and the idea is if the players want to do something, well, they can't just like make one roll and accomplish that. Usually for the big ones, it's maybe a group effort where many people are going to contribute. Let's set up a clock, and that clock has 4 radials or 8 or whatever, and however many radials is how much effort it's going to take them to complete that task. They need that many successes to win.
Okay.
And counter to that is NPC Faction 1, who is competing for the same thing, and NPC Faction 2 that wants none of them to get that done, right? Or whatever complex they want to make it. And so now there are competing clocks. There's the player clock, and then there are the NPC groups that are either competing for or trying to prevent that same action. And it's neat because you get to watch the players and have this tension of, are we doing better than the other guys?
And so the players can't see the clocks?
Sometimes they can, sometimes they can't. Just depends on how you want to run it.
Okay.
But it's a neat way to kind of say, hey, there's this thing that's either going to happen quickly throughout this entire session, or is going to happen over a broader spectrum within the campaign.
Yeah. So because you can like set up a clock basically that has a certain faction's goals, and they're progressing along that goal, which could be completely invisible to what the characters are doing, but it's based off of kind of some of their actions or non-actions or just it's happening in the world. And once it counts down to a certain time, then that action triggers. And so you can bring that into the world. Or like, you say, do they see them or not? Sometimes you can just draw a clock, put it down there and lay it down with nothing in there and just like, say, okay, and the players kind of like look at it and like,
what is this?
What
What you got there? What's that clock about there, GM? I don't know. There's something happening in 4 ticks.
Yeah,
that's really cool. I think so that fits in really well. One of the things I've been wanting to build, obviously I've been tied up with this huge offline update stuff, but that's almost done. Like
that's awesome.
single digit days at this point.
Wow.
I finished like the last task on the board today, and so now I'm just gonna now it's giving it a once, twice, 3 times over. Just lots of testing and making sure everything works fine. But I've been imagining in a smaller update deploying kind of more editor widgets that you could use to build more interactive documents, like a little counter where you could say the max of the counter is 4 dots and you could fill in the dots, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or you could make a progress bar and drag the progress bar. I could totally see clocks being just like the radial version of those things, right? Where you create a circle, it's got 6 slots, you can fill in the slots by clicking them, right? And all of that stuff would be enough to create some pretty cool like character sheets and like interactive experiences you can use to keep track of things. Yeah. So that's really cool. I'll add that to my feature story for those widgets.
Sweet. Yeah. If and I think what would make that especially germane to like the Blades in the Dark mentality is they have like a faction sheet, and every faction sheet has their like project and a clock associated with that, and the GM sees the clocks and the players see the factions, right? And so if I had an article that was all of the factions, and then there's a GM hidden section that was all of their clocks, this faction is trying to expand territory, is trying to murder those guys, whatever the thing is, right? Then I can just have all their clocks arrayed, and I can just, as a GM, kind of roll like, how are they doing? I don't need to decide these things. Let the dice roll. Let the dice figure that stuff out. And then the players get to witness the fallout of those things.
I really like that clock idea. I immediately can see how to deploy it in my game.
Seriously, go pick up Blades in the Dark and just read downtime and clocks. It is so powerful. It's so good as a GM.
Like last week, the players found out that there's this whole conspiracy to like destroy all of existence that involves 12 seals keeping something imprisoned. And I'm like, perfect. I'm going to make a fancy looking clock graphic and start striking them off. And be like, oh, you heard about another one that's been destroyed today. Good job.
Yep, exactly. If y'all don't mind, I'd like to do another question from the audience. Does that work? Skynock asks, when I've been looking for a short pre-session RP exercise to get people into character and help define some small aspects. Any suggestions? And I see this as like before session 1, maybe between sessions, that kind of thing, right? Skynock, I'm going to start off by going right back to Blades in the Dark. Blades in the Dark has this whole mechanic around downtime that encourages interaction between the players to help establish the relationships that are going on in the crew. So your downtime could happen between sessions, and you can say, guys, we're going to do a play-by-post, we're going to get on a quick call, and there's no dice, we're just going to role-play a quick scene, that kind of thing, and that maybe put a small problem in front of them, or maybe put some small like task for them to collaborate around. Put that in front of them so they have something to do with the scene. But like something like that that you can do between sessions, it's really strong. And Blades does a great job. The Paragon system by John Harper and Sean Nittner does a really good job of the downtime scenes and all that kind of stuff, where they encourage you to ask questions of each other. So those are my like immediate go-to pre-session, between session, like ways to get a little RP to bring in some small details from your player characters into the world would be those two games.
That if you want to use it as a tool to get everyone in kind of the role-playing mindset every week, one thing I would consider would be to say to 2 or more of the players and be like, describe something that has happened between your 2 characters since we last played. Something that's not combat related, just whether it's a conversation, whether
Yep.
one of you's asked someone for help, just describe something between you and another character, so it encourages the players to speak to each other and not just monologue.
Yeah.
And tell me something that your characters have been doing. It can be totally mundane and everyday, but which helps build out the world.
Tying in the theme.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but it gets them in the spirit of roleplay, and it can be a good way to say, right, okay, the pre-game conversation has ended. We are now playing.
Right. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think those are great. Depending on if I don't use it all the time, but a lot of times I actually use a questionnaire, particularly with like players I don't know as well, and I ask, and I give them experience or something for filling it out. And it's not usually very big, but I ask questions like, what keeps your character up at night? What gets your character up in the morning? What would your character walk through fire for? Describe a critical person or organization, and then describe, a single scene or event that took place that is related to that character or organization. And I find that really kind of, at least it provides me material. Like, ooh, hey, I know I got some motivations to kind of get you going. But it also, I think it's something that can happen pre-session, and it just kind of gives a little bit of oomph into it. They don't have to go out and fill out 50 pages. If they want to, they will. But if they're just looking for a little bit of definition and a little bit of a spark, just some of those kind of questions allow them to kind of do it and kind of engage with it, and then kind of bring that in. So I that's a technique I use.
Yeah, the relationship mapping between NPCs and from player characters to NPCs can be really powerful. And there's a lot of little things that come out of that. You can have whole sessions or even campaigns that come from some little backstory idea or downtime idea that springs out of those player characters. So Skynock, I hope that helped you. There's a lot of things you can do between sessions. We at HSG really got into the habit of doing play by post between on-screen sessions. So we would do an on-screen session for stream that had a lot of action, a lot of like big events happening, and then between those sessions we would do like some bookkeeping and some play by post stuff just between us to like kind of get a gut check of like what the fallout was of some conversations and decisions, let some of the PCs kind of work some of their stuff out, get everything set up for the next game during the downtime via play by post.
I think if you have the time and the ability to, giving your players one-on-one sessions of just roleplay stuff for their character to help them build out their character can be super powerful as well, and can really develop the characters and open new story doors that you might not have seen before.
Yep. Yeah, agreed. And to pick more on questions from the audience, folks, you can ask a question by putting question first so we can filter on that. And then the rest of your question. Bob Turpin asks, have you given up on an villainous NPC you created just because the players totally ignored him, so you ended up changing it to a new one? All right. No. Just because the players don't care about the villain doesn't mean the villain doesn't exist. They may care about a different villain, they may care about something else, but left unchecked, my villains get worse. And I want them to not feel punished by that decision to not get involved. I want them to know that the world is still working, whether or not they're paying attention, So the villain may change a little bit, right? Like if I kind of figure out why they didn't interact with that villain, like maybe he didn't seem villainous enough, or maybe they're like, I don't know, he seems like an aggressive capitalist, but not necessarily bad. It's like, okay, cool. I'll work on that. I'll make him real bad. So, yeah, no, I don't give up on my villains.
I think that sometimes what I will do is not give up on the villain entirely, but I will just move what they do completely off screen, and they will only hear the faintest whispers of the fallout of it at first, and then over time they're like, oh, we left that place like 6 months ago, and now everything's on fire, and it's all our fault.
Right.
We're not going to go back, but it's all our fault.
We could have stopped that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I want to be careful with that because that can feel like a bit of a slog, right?
Yeah.
But it's one of those things that like I don't want to get rid of NPCs that the players didn't care about. Right? I change the context, but I don't get rid of them because then it really is like not simulation. It really is like video game where the world is rendering right around them, and that's the only part of the world that really exists.
Yeah.
You know, and then they're like, well, don't run down that alley because then David's going to invent stuff down that alley. It's like, no, I want you to go down the alley so I can invent stuff. Yeah. So
exactly. I think that players have a tendency sometimes to go, we don't immediately care about this, so we're going to walk away from it, and they think that has no consequence sometimes, or they expect because they're not engaged with it that nothing's going to come of it, and then they go back to a place later or re-encounter something connected to that, and they're like, oh, things do happen when we're not around.
Patrick, your point about clocks is like right in here with this.
And I've I guess small plug. I write articles for Blackgate and RPG articles, and I've spent the last few articles reviewing Twilight 2000's Polish campaign, which is a series of sandbox supplements, right? So, and Twilight 2000, for those of interest, didn't really have a plot. They're not like typical adventures. What they are is here's a hook, and here's a bunch of NPCs, and they've got bad guys, right? There's a baron who's basically willing to use chemical rounds to take over area because he didn't plan well enough for food for the winter. For those of you who don't know, Twilight 2000's post-apocalyptic sort of scenario, and it's sort of by ingrained within that game that if you don't interact with them, they don't go away. They keep going and doing it. And maybe somebody else might stop them, but they have a consequence and an impact on the world that, all of a sudden people are fleeing, becoming more refugees because they're trying to get away from the Baron, or all of a sudden there's, more people that are being sort of enslaved to serve the Baron's wishes or that kind of stuff. So yeah, I really agree. I don't think they go away. They keep acting in the world, and eventually that consequence comes to bear on the players in some form or fashion.
You reminded me, so just like having the players watch NPCs take the fall for the players' actions, it can also be a lot of fun to have the players witness another group gain a lot of glory for accomplishing a thing that they ignored. Savers of the realm! The Bucharest Club or whatever, and you're like, who are the Bucharest Clubs? Like, they're the ones who took out the thing y'all ignored. It's like, really? It's like, yeah, man, they like killed a bunch of stuff.
We were trying to tell you about them.
I think that makes players more angry, and motivates them more than anything else when you go, someone else is getting the gold star, not you.
Yeah. I once started in a D&D game. I had a bunch of players brand new. I didn't know what kind of game they wanted to play. So I gave each character a little mission that was germane to their class. From like their lord or from their, business partner, whoever. They all had little missions. And the first one was like, go into the sewers and chase out some goblins. And by the way, this is an open contract. Other adventurers can get in on this. And they're like, oh shit, we don't have time to buy. We got to go now.
Yeah.
Because there's another adventuring troupe that could show up. And sure enough, I had like a little like sorcerer and guy like on the other end trying to bust in for the other way. And it was a race to see who could get to the like head goblin in time to gain the bounty for the whole thing. And that was probably like one of the most fun intro sessions ever, was just a straight up, yeah, there's other adventurers out here and they're racing you.
Yeah.
And they will win if you don't move quick,
Yeah.
And that was fun, like, so yeah, totally. Let the players miss out on some glory. Let that go to some other NPCs every so often. So they know that they're not the only ones that have the power to affect the world for good or evil.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's something I've been doing in my current game, and the players have encountered the rival party a couple times now, and there's been a period of kind of downtime where they've not seen them,
Yep.
and they're just starting to pick up this quest to find the lost city of gold, and that rival party is also going to be doing it. And when the motivation is like an entire city of gold, it's going to be fun to watch what
Yeah.
they'll do to people who haven't actually wronged them for money.
There's a game that we're about to start playing called Red Markets, and it's an economic horror game with zombies. And one of the parts of the economic horror is like when you go to get a job, you're negotiating to be allowed to take the job and for how much pay you're going to get. And by the way, there's other people who are going to undercut you for the same work. And so like there's this whole built-in economy of like you're not the only people bidding on quests here. Right?
This is too real.
It's exactly. But that to get back to the little things, like that's something you can introduce. Like, no, you're not the only adventurers in this game. There's a whole college of adventurers, and they all got to pay their student loans, man. So like,
if you're a GM that's running multiple games, especially if you're running them in the same world,
right?
Have your groups be those opposing adventuring parties and have each group hear about what the other one's doing and be like, there's this other party out there. Yeah. They're getting all this glory. They've, defeated all of these monsters.
Oh yeah. Yeah. So yeah, there's some games out there that do that kind of stuff. I also like, we have another question from Phoenix. What's that small detail that your players picked up on and cared far too much about when you simply didn't intend for it to matter?
Oh, I've got one of these.
Please do. I've got so many I gotta choose.
Players are walking down the road. I come up with some other road travelers just to enhance the travel experience. And
Very candid of you.
They're drinking from their like satchels or their, what are they called? Water
skins, yeah, whatever.
Water skins, yeah.
Canteens, whatever.
But for whatever reason, I was, inspired to say that they were drinking milk, just because, like, why not? Milk, sure.
Yep.
And my players really got hung up on that a lot. Like that now this like family of milk sippers, they call them, are like a recurring, like, they're really nice people. They're really nice people. They just travel and drink milk. But like my players hated that for some reason. They're like, what? Why are you guys drinking milk out of a water skin? That doesn't. When did the cow produce the milk? What is the production to like?
God.
It got very wild. And they haven't like murder hoboed them or anything. They just hate them. And so I make sure that the milk sipper family, I've decided it's a large family, and just kind of members of it show up every now and then. And they're always like, why are you guys always drinking milk? We don't understand. This is ridiculous. Drink water.
That's great.
Yeah, that was one that like really stuck around and has stuck around a long time.
That's so good.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. You win.
Yeah. There's nothing to follow that.
Yeah, no, like all my ideas are cute compared to milk sipper hate. Like that's just gold, man. So this is one of the fun. That's like one of the most fun things about being a GM is you like you throw out stuff and you're like, these are all throwaway ideas. There's no
exactly.
There's paper behind all of them. They're all paper thin ideas, and then like the players love it or hate it or have this strong reaction to it. It's like, well, now I got to put some meat on that and start giving it some love. And then like the other thing that will happen is like you'll write all this stuff and it's like not paper thin. It's like brick wall thick. And the players are like, no.
Right past them.
No. Like you keep seeding in like, oh yeah, there's this purple vine wrapped around this thing. And like, that's weird. No, I'm leaving that alone. It's like, you don't want to touch the purple vine? No.
So this place should hire a gardener.
Yeah, I'm gonna leave this room.
Anyway, what's that over there?
Yeah, exactly. Like, damn it! Like, I had this whole thing around the purple vine, or whatever the thing is.
sometimes it can really blow up in your face as well. Like putting a small mundane detail that you don't think anything of, and they latch onto it so hard. And as soon as you mentioned the milk sippers, it reminded me in my game I had the players go into a tavern and they asked if there was any specials.
Yeah.
And I had just a list of drinks. I was like, what's the most ridiculous thing on this? And one of them was called a rumboozle. And it's a mixture of like ale, eggs, milk, and spirits. And it just sounded horrible. I was like, yes, I'm going to say that.
Yeah.
3 years, one of my players has been asking every time we go into a tavern if they have rumboozles. 3 years.
So
every time.
ATP in chat, he's talking about his game right now is dealing with this like milk sipper problem. He's running our Mass Effect game that we're running. We homebrewed Mass Effect World into the Cyberpunk rules. They work out really well. It's crazy. For whatever reason, our crew, Omega Squad, fucking hates Gold Squad. They've never done anything wrong to us. We hate them. They're like a part of our ship. They're supposed to be our friends. We hate them. I have no idea why we hate them. I feel so bad for Casey because he's like, yeah, there's all these squads that you all work with, and like y'all are Omega, or not Omega, Obsidian Squad. We're Obsidian Squad, and these guys are Gold Squad. It's like, why aren't we Gold Squad? Huh? I immediately hate them. Silver Squad, they're cool, whatever. They're down in the trenches with us, but Gold Squad, no, they gotta die. It's so bad.
There's something about like the you know, I'm sure it depends on the vibe of the campaign you're running, but there's something about the irrationality of players that like really like brings that, like, because we roll dice for like to create chaos and entropy in our stories, right?
Right.
But
sure.
Players are more entropic than dice are. You know what I mean?
By far. Yeah.
So it makes it very rewarding and fun.
Yeah, but my Star Wars campaign, my players, like, you know, they stole a ship, right? And
like you do.
The next thing I know, they're like, oh wait, we're gonna steal another ship. And so they're like, they've now made it their goal to be like essentially pirates that take ships all over the place. So they like go out their way to not destroy a ship now, so that they can take the ship. And they're trying to accumulate this fleet of ships, and they're like, oh yeah, well we're going to send that one over there, send this one over there, and it's like, exactly, it's like, what?
It's like
it's not a pirate game. It's but it is.
That's the every animal is going to be our pet problem, but in space.
Yeah, but in space, every ship is our new ride. Yeah.
I love the ambition of it though. Like, I'll take that over a group of players who are like, yeah, we'll wait around until you tell us what our next mission is. Just you want an armada? Go for it. Steal every ship in the galaxy. I want to help you do that.
Right. Yeah. Let's see how that works. Yeah.
I'm waiting for them to try to steal, a Star Destroyer, right?
Yeah.
You know, because that's what they, it's like this was leading up to, right?
Right.
So,
yeah.
And then you just watch their faces that Star Destroyer just completely obliterates the first ship they ever stole, and they're like, oh. And then it's like, and then the guns level at the second ship you ever stole. It disappears. And then you just like watch as they panic. Like, we flew too high too close to the sun. Our wings are burning. We must flee. Yeah.
Little things, big consequences.
That's right.
That's what it's all about. Right.
Yeah.
Hitting them with the consequences.
Good question in here about NPCs lying. From Yonatachim. You not a chim. I don't know. Sorry if I butchered your name there. How often do your NPCs lie to the players? How do you find a good balance between honest folk and liars? Man, that's tough. I have some players that are just damn suspicious of every NPC. And I have other players that are not. And they will just tell my NPCs everything. And it's like, I don't have to lie. They're feeding them all the knowledge. It's like, okay, yeah, how are you doing today? Oh, cool, life story. Yeah, go ahead. Give me the life story. Yeah, thanks. Oh, you did that? Nobody else knows about that? That's interesting. Good stuff. Thank you so much for telling me. So I am probably not the right GM to ask because my players are so diametrically opposed at how they manage the information game that like that actually becomes player schism. Not player schism, but that becomes character schism because the players are great. They love the stuff, but the characters themselves are like, you gave them so much information. It's like, but now they're our allies and they're so powerful. It's like, yes, but. So yeah, I'm not the right person to ask on that one. I'll defer to you too.
My players are suspicious of everyone, and for good reason, because I betray them almost constantly. Betrayal. I've recently discovered this about myself. Betrayal seems to be the main theme of every game I run. Like, I will find ways to betray my players, even when I don't really set out intending to.
It just happens.
And they love it. They feed into these things and they put themselves and create these situations where they're just setting themselves up to be betrayed and to have ruin brought upon them, and I love it.
Yeah.
I just look to the motivation of the characters. So most often, so if I think it's a character that's going to lie, they'll lie. But I don't make them lie about everything. I make them lie about what they consider important information.
Yeah.
So in general, because I think most people are honest, most of the NPCs are honest. It's the NPCs that have motivations, behind it that will lie, and sometimes it's a lie to protect themselves or to protect, family or something. It's not a lie to lie just to lie. It's a reason for the lie.
There's also a bit of a metagame thing happening here that I'll admit to. I caught on to this one group of players. They would intrinsically... Sorry, I should back up. I had one player who would intrinsically trust any female character and would intrinsically distrust any male character. And so I learned that about them early on, and I just kind of architected that. I was like, okay, if I want this to be a betrayal, then it will be a lady who is lying to them. And if I want this to be a surprise, it'll be a guy who's not, right? And I'll mix and match it. But I knew what I was playing with when I did that. So like some of this is, you got to know your players. And I use that as an example because it was pretty cut and dry. But there's a lot of nuances to that. So you got to really know your players and like figure out who are they not going to trust so you can surprise them when it works out. And then who are they going to intrinsically distrust, and then like feed them a win. Like, yeah, you were right to not trust that guy. He did screw you over or try to, and you got him, you caught him in the act or whatever the thing is. But yeah, that's something that's like, it's so specific to the table and to the players and like what's fun.
Yeah.
Because like Anto, your game full of backstabby, backbitey NPCs is probably a lot of fun, right?
I mean, it's probably not as betrayal heavy as it seems when I talk about it, because I feel like when I talk about it, I'm always talking about betrayals.
Yeah.
But it's that matter of trust. The players that I play with, I've known almost my entire life.
Right.
We trust each other as people, and I know what they enjoy out of the game. So for an example, the party warlock, they and their patron are both missing memories. So they have given me permission to be like, you get to decide what's happened in those gaps, with the one caveat that I never want my patron to betray me. And I was like, okay, that's fine. I will run with that, and I will never make your patron betray you, because that's not the kind of story you're interested in.
Right.
But in all of that other space, I'm going to have so much fun, and like, you're going to get accused of being a herald of the apocalypse and you want to ruin the world, and an angel is going to say that you want to do it, and it's going to create a load of inter-party drama, but your patron will never betray you, because that is the boundary that you as a player has set.
I will say that that's something that is, as a GM, you're always discovering that balance. So person who asked the question, I'm not going to try and butcher your name again, you gotta kind of throw your dart and make adjustments. And you're going to get it wrong a couple of times. I've totally gotten it wrong. I remember I had this like whole big backstab thing, and it really fell flat. The players hated it. And I was like, okay, well, whoops. This game is no fun all of a sudden. And it's all my fault because of how that went, or it was anticlimactic because like no, they were being truthful the whole time, and y'all were just being weird, you know. So you got to find the balance. You got to make sure that it stays fun and all that kind of stuff. And what works on my table is not going to work on your table.
Exactly.
We are
mistakes are fun.
Yeah, mistakes are fun. Yeah, we learn from those mistakes. As my kiddo likes to say, you make a mistake, but mistakes are okay. And so we are getting close to time. Are there any other things that we wanted to talk about? Because Anto, I know you eventually have to go do stuff, and I want to be respectful of your time because it is late where you are. Thank you for staying up late. Is there anything else we want to jump on to tonight before we do our sign-off stuff?
I think so, unless anyone's got any questions. Quick fire questions.
Yeah, quick fire questions. There you go. I'm loving all the stuff in chat. I love when we bring our people together because everybody has such a fun time in the chat. Like just looking at like the interaction between like the various communities that are here. Y'all are all so lovely together. It's just great to see.
I'm absolutely here for being the #1 of top 10 anime betrayers.
Yes. That is quite the list to be on. Yeah. Well, cool. Well, then how about we do a little sign off real quick. Let's start with you, Patrick, and we'll kind of work our way over to Braden. Patrick, why don't you talk a little bit about Two Brothers Gaming and where people can find you and what you're up to?
Yeah, so Two Brothers Gaming, that's me and my brother, and you can find us on Facebook, Two Brothers Gaming, on Twitch and YouTube as well. We are on Drive-Thru. You can get our After the Machines RPG, little OSR inspired short game if you're interested, and we're working on a fantasy one. And probably more importantly, just a reminder, those interested, May Day, our Traveler Charity event on May 1st at 8 p.m. Eastern. I'll be running Dave and a few other cohorts through Angle of Incidents, supporting the Carcinoid Cancer Foundation. And Braden, I'm pointing to where he's at in my screen, is a fantastic sponsor and is going to provide some LegendKeeper codes for us, access for us. So thank you, Braden, for supporting it. I know that helps drive people to donate. So so thank you.
Definitely. And Anto, tell us about Icarus.
I'm Anto. I run Icarus Games. I make videos on being a dungeon master and a storyteller and a world builder. I'm almost everywhere on the internet. And as of May 1st, I'm launching a fancy new magazine called SideQuest that's going to be filled with resources for DMs and players. And I am super excited about it.
Yeah, that's so cool. Like doing the zine and it's an actual physical thing, not just a download link. That's so tight, man. That's so good.
Right, there'll be download version and print on demand version. It's going to be awesome. I'm pumped.
Yeah, that is super exciting. I'll go through my stuff real quick. I'm David. This is HSG. We are primarily a Twitch and YouTube site now that does actual plays of lots of different games. We have wrapped up our Brindlewood Bay kind of like Murder, She Wrote RPG. And we are about to start Red Markets, which is economic horror plus zombies. And it's going to be bleak. Because we start in Oklahoma. I'm from Texas. Texans historically do not like Oklahoma. So there's that whole thing. So yeah, Red Markets is going to be great. And we were running Aegon, and we set down our Shadowrun game. We're going to start up some other games here shortly. So we got a lot of stuff going on. We just do lots of actual plays right now. The podcast will start again. It'll start again when like I'm in a better headspace to do it, frankly. But yeah, we're always doing something here, almost 3 or 4 times a week now at this point. So it's a lot of fun. Braden, talk to us about LegendKeeper and all the beautiful stuff that you're doing, helping me run all these crazy games we keep doing. I promise you, every single project, like Red Markets, 100% in LegendKeeper. No Roll20, no other thing now. We've refined our stuff down to a single
That's what it's
platform.
all about.
Boom.
Yeah, so my name is Braden, the creator of LegendKeeper. I make it with my co-founder, Justin. And basically, LegendKeeper is a platform for people doing world building of all kinds, whether you are a game master running a D&D game or a game master running, red markets or really anything, right? It's platform agnostic. You can use it. Patrick uses it for writing and novels and that sort of thing. So
Yeah.
any creative endeavor where you need to spatially and semantically organize your world's knowledge. Our next big thing we're working on is what we're calling the Hydra update. Our updates have alphabetical code names, and so the next one is H, so it's Hydra. This one's super important to me because I take LegendKeeper and our users' creations incredibly seriously. And so one of my biggest goals has been to get offline support in the app so that you are never reliant on someone's web server to hold all your stuff, right? And to be fair, LegendKeeper is like 99.999% uptime, and it's incredibly reliable. But still, it's important for creators to be able to have full control over the things they make. And that's kind of one of the big problems with web applications is you have less of that control, which is why LegendKeeper is getting a desktop application and this more powerful web application that can save things and edit things locally. So you'll be able to drop pins offline and edit your wiki offline. You come back online, it all just gracefully resynchronizes and you're good to go. So it's very seamless. The offline experience is nearly identical to the online experience. It's something I'm totally excited about. I really think it brings LegendKeeper into like the professional world building realm.
Super, yeah, that's super mature, man. Like that is not something I'd ever expect from one. I would never expect it from a SaaS solution, right? Like software as a service solution.
It's a tough problem too. Like it's hard to build.
And you're still like the one guy doing all the coding.
Yeah.
That's amazing to me that you're doing this. So thank you, Braden, for doing that. Because like
coding.
We're gonna be using. I mean, like all of our guys, we do creative stuff when we're not plugged in. We all do that.
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.
I write it down now, and I got to go back and transcribe it. So the fact that I could do that offline, amazing. It's gonna be really great.
Yeah. And plus being able to work offline, that also just means that by default. In poor network settings, LegendKeeper is fine. Doesn't care if you're shitty internet going in and out. It'll just keep on trucking as if that wasn't happening. So that's very exciting.
I like how you say keep on trucking because DTP in chat, he's our GM for the Mass Effect game, also a trucker.
Oh, nice.
And spends long periods of his day without internet access. So,
that's wonderful.
Yeah. So
I love that.
Everything you're doing is incredibly beneficial to him. So thank you for doing that.
I'm happy to do it.
Yeah. Oh man. Well, awesome. Everybody at home, I think we need to call it here. This will be like one of our briefer ones because we always have a lot of fun doing this, but we have, schedules and stuff, and it's super late where Anto is. So
who needs sleep?
Who needs sleep? Yeah. So thank you all for being here. I am going to find some lovely people to raid just because I love to raid people. This is like my favorite thing to do is like, hello, internet. I'm going to gift you a bunch of viewers. The con save.
Yeah.
Let's go over to the con save. Okay. So the con save, they're the chillest people. They're so fun. Taylor, she runs Cyberpunk and they have this giant game of players. And I think they sometimes have like 10 players on screen. They have 2 GMs because their game is so big. It's ridiculous. So we're going to raid these cats. They're so great. I love everything about them. And they are playing some Cyberpunk tonight. They're getting kind of towards the end of their campaign. So some big stuff is dropping. So come in, drop some emotes, give them some love, and likely can subscribe and all that good stuff.
Mark Perkins in right at the end. I don't even know 10 people, let alone 10 players.
I disbelieve Matthew Perkins, DM. I disbelieve you. Awesome. Well, folks, everybody at home, thanks a ton for watching. As always, have fun and play well.
Thank you.
All right, we are out.